The speaker at a camp I attended my senior year of high school said something that has stuck with me until today. He said, "We don't really want someone to love us despite our brokenness. We want someone to love us so much that they start to heal it." This sentiment is the basis of a branch of psychotherapy called humanistic therapy. Today we're going to talk about the theories and founding principles behind the humanistic perspective in psychology, what humanistic therapy looks like, and the impact of the humanistic perspective on psychotherapy today. Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow were the primary architects of humanistic psychology. They both believe that we are basically good and that we are all working toward becoming the best that we can be. So let's look at what they emphasized independently. First, Carl Rogers believed that we are motivated by a wish to be good and that we would achieve our potential if shown unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard is an attitude of complete acceptance toward another person, regardless of what that person has done or said. It's based on the belief in that person's essential goodness. Unfortunately, many of us are only shown unconditional positive regard when we meet people's standards, and this stunts our growth toward becoming our ideal self. The belief here is that when we are accepted for who we are, we can put aside other standards and get back on track in developing our ideal self. According to Dr. Stephen Franzoy, showing unconditional positive regard involves 3 characteristics: genuineness, which is being open and honest; warmth, which is being caring and nurturing; and empathy, which is accurately identifying what the other person is thinking and feeling. Next, Abraham Maslow emphasized the importance of self-actualization, which is the process of fulfilling one's full potential. He believed that in order to self-actualize, we must be motivated to become the best person that we can be. Now you know about the basic principles of humanistic psychology. So what does humanistic therapy look like? Humanistic therapy is considered client-centered because the focus is on the client's own conscious self-perceptions rather than the therapist's interpretations of those perceptions. 3 techniques include open-ended statements, reflection, and paraphrasing. Open-ended statements encourage the clients to speak without limiting the topic of conversation, so clients can say as little or as much as they want to. An example would be, "Tell me about your week." In reflection, the therapist acknowledges some emotion that the client has expressed verbally or non-verbally. So if the client has said that the week has been hard, the therapist might say, "This has been a tough week for you." In paraphrasing, the therapist summarizes the verbal content of what the client has said to make sure that they understand what the client is trying to say. So if the client is distressed but not expressing that clearly, the therapist might say, "Let me make sure I understand the situation that you faced this week. You said that," and then so on. Today, many therapists in different branches of psychology use some or all of these techniques in their own practices. This is why Carl Rogers is often called the person who has had the biggest influence on how psychology is practiced. Reviews of over 1,000 therapeutic outcome studies conducted over a 35-year period support Rogers' belief that a positive client-therapist relationship is essential to the effectiveness of psychotherapy. So in summary, Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow both helped to develop humanistic psychology. Rogers emphasized unconditional positive regard, while Maslow emphasized self-actualization. Humanistic therapy relies on an environment of unconditional positive regard and uses techniques such as open-ended statements, reflection, and paraphrasing. Finally, many therapists today still use some or all of Rogers' techniques in their own practices, regardless of what branch of psychology they are in. All in all, humanistic psychology is based on unconditional love and acceptance, and I think that these are 2 things that we all need in our lives, whether we get that in therapy or elsewhere.